Hello and welcome to Simplified on PowerDrift, where we take complicated automotive ideas and break them down into small pieces that you can digest easily. Today we're talking about a topic that has been requested multiple times and is something we all face regularly, and that's the challenge of riding in the night. But before we begin, I invite you now to hit the subscribe button and the bell notification icon because we have a lot of Simplifieds coming at you and you want to be notified when they come out. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and please do show this to your friends. And for those of you who've seen Simplified for the first time, there's a playlist called Simplified on the PowerDrift YouTube channel with a lot of old interesting topics that apply to your life with motorcycles. And I invite you, please do go see them. And if you like them, please do leave a comment there as well. So, eventually, the Game of Thrones moment happens, right?
The night is dark and full of terrors.
And the full of terrors bit is actually true for motorcycling in the night. But why is that? The fundamental problem of riding in the night is the obvious one, right? Once the sun disappears beneath the horizon, the source of ambient light that illuminates our world has disappeared, and that means what you can see with the naked human eye, even with the headlight on, is a much smaller subset of what's actually going on. And what that should mean to you is that what you see as a hazard in the day remains a hazard in the night. It's just not visible anymore, and therefore the idea of what are the risks you are facing is a much weaker idea in the night, and that's where the full of terrors bit comes from. So what can you do about it? The fundamental problem of riding in the night, of course, is the fact that you can't see, and therefore we have to do everything we can to see better. And that starts at the very basic level with your equipment. So if you're riding in the night, I think it's totally worthwhile to stop at dusk and clean your visor out. Ideally, of course, you should be running a clear visor, and I, for example, always have two visors in my luggage. The dark one, which I use in the day because I hate using sunglasses inside, and a clear one, which is somewhere in my bag, ready to go, spectacularly chakachak clean, which I will put in like half an hour before sunset, and then I'll use that for the rest of the ride. So the first thing that you can do is change your visor to a clean, clear one so that you have the best opportunity to see what's going on, whatever little your headlight is able to show you, because remember, the big headlight in the sky is not going to come back till morning. The next thing that you can do about riding in the night, of course, is the biggest challenge that we all face, and it's basically a stupid, idiotic thing, which is everybody else running on high beams. The one thing that does not work is you switching to high beams as well. Because instead of one guy blinding one guy, now you've got two guys blinding each other, and what do you think that does for your risk of having an accident? So whether you hate it, you love it, you're screaming in your helmet, you're abusing the guy, if you're on high beam and they are on high beam, both of you are blind, both of you are suffering, and both of you are at a much higher risk of having a crash. So even if it seems logical to retaliate by you also switching to high beam, it doesn't achieve anything. The simpler is you flash them a couple of times and see if they will take their headlights down, and if they don't, the trick is to not look at that headlight. So the most common human reaction to having something annoy us is to look at what's annoying us, right? We all do it, that's the instinct. But better motorcycle riding comes from not following the instinct and using your brain instead. If that light is dazzling me and I take my eyes and look at that headlight, all I have done is take all of that dazzling illumination and forced my eyes to deal with it. Which means that after that car passes, for the next few moments, my eye has to readjust to the lower state of illumination, and I'm effectively, temporarily, slightly blinded by this. So what do? I know that what you really want to do is say, "Hey, gadhe, kya kar raha hai?" But what you should be doing is instead looking away. You can look straight and down so that the headlight doesn't dazzle you so much. Even better, if you have a road with fog lines, that's the white line painted at the edge of the road. Look at the fog line so that you can orient your motorcycle as to where you are on the road. You don't get lost in the moment that you're being blinded by this dazzling light. We can't, unfortunately, fix the guys who are driving on high beam or riding on high beam. What we can do instead is not look at it and cause that to increase the amount of trouble we're in. The second problem of not being able to see is not technically our problem, it's everybody else's problem. And that's the question of, you're on a motorcycle, it's not a very large thing to look at. Can they see you? So if you're going to be out in the night a lot, in the city where there may be street lights, out on the highway where they always aren't, you need to worry about what does the motorcycle look like, how visible you are, and the easiest way to do this, of course, is to get jackets with reflectives on it. They're pretty common now, motorcycle jackets. The other way to do this, of course, is to add reflectives to your motorcycle. My tip here is use colors that are appropriate for the part of the motorcycle you're using. Generally, white lights are the front of the motorcycle, so if I were using white reflectors in the front, That's what I would do. I do not want to use red or yellow there. If I'm putting reflectors at the back, they'd generally be red because that's where you normally see red. And on the side, I'd put amber or yellow ones because that's where you normally see amber or yellow. Once you've got your ability to see sorted from equipment, you've got the idea of not looking at the headlight, and you've got the third idea, which is to put reflectives and make your motorcycle, your presence more felt in the night traffic. The final thing you can do is decide how you want to deal with the riding in the night. For many of us, riding in the night is simply something we are so uncomfortable with that we just don't want to do it. When I started my riding career, India didn't have 4-lane highways. There were 2-lane undivided carriageways, which means there was every chance that you'd be going down the road and then some truck would pull out in your path. And remember, most of these trucks are overloaded. Their ability to accelerate is limited. Their ability to brake is even more severely hampered. So he would basically say, there's nothing I can do, and therefore the onus of taking evasive action is entirely up to the motorcycle. You go off-roading and hopefully you won't have a crash, you just have a scare, but I know that worse has happened, right? So dealing with the night is not everybody's cup of tea. Today, with divided 4-lane carriageways, it's a lot simpler, but the risk is roughly the same because the trucks are still overloaded. They have a lot more space to deal with it. They probably don't really want to get in your way, but there are chances that something like that can happen. So consider very seriously whether you want to ride in the night at all. And I know that most stock headlights in the face of oncoming traffic headlight and all of this stuff doesn't always work very well. But there is some amount of choices and reason that we can bring to the picture of having to deal with the highway in the night. And the most obvious thing for me is don't put the night section at the end of your day. Try to put it in the beginning of the day. Okay, so let's assume that you're starting out from somewhere at 10 o'clock in the morning and you're expecting to finish your ride at say 8 p.m. in the night. You're going to face darkness from let's say 6 to 8. That's 2 hours at the end of a day on the motorcycle, which means you're the most tired at that point, and that's when you put the most difficult part of the ride in front of you. How I would plan that day is to start at 4 in the morning instead, having to deal with the darkness from 4 to 6, knowing that the light will come. But as I consume more and more of my energy, the day gets brighter, the riding gets easier, and therefore the loss of energy doesn't necessarily mean that I'm riding worse or taking bigger risks. So, in sum, you will have to ride in the night at some point, and if you're in an area with street lights, your job is quite simple. But the idea is you do what you can to make your experience better. It starts with you ensuring that your equipment, and that's the helmet visor, the reflectors on your jacket, all of that is in great shape. You add to how people see you by adding reflectors to your motorcycle. You don't look at high beams and blind yourself, because effectively when you choose to look at the high beam, you are blinding yourself. And finally, if you can plan your day better, start really early in the morning and deal with the darkness when you're at your freshest, rather than leave it for the evening when you're at your least fresh and just waiting to get to the hotel and get out of the riding gear, take a shower and all of those things. So, is the night long and full of terrors? Yes, but we can deal with it if we have a strategy in place, and I've given you the 5 things that I use as a strategy to deal with night riding. If there's something else that you do that I think I've missed out or is a great idea that should be in this video, leave us a comment. We'll see what we can do about bringing it into Simplified the next time around. If you'd like to discuss this further, leave us a comment. And if there's anything else at all that you'd like to see on Simplified, all you have to do is leave us a comment and we'll get right on it. Thank you so much for watching. Before I leave you, 4 buttons and 1 playlist to remind you of. Subscribe, the bell notification icon, thumbs up, share, and please do go see the Simplified playlist. It's got about 35 or 40 videos in it already. More will join, and a lot of them cover topics like this, small things that will change your experience of motorcycling.